Good afternoon, everybody. Call the meeting to order and welcome you to this Finance Committee meeting of the 3rd of July 2014. This is the first committee meeting that is being live streamed as a result of Council wanting to become more transparent. So please, I ask everybody, please give us your best side today. Okay, so the meeting's open. Call for apologies. I have, as recorded apology, Councillor Forsyth. I also have an apology, future apology from Councillor O'Leary, who is going to be leaving the meeting around 3:30.
I'll move.
Are there any other apologies?
Second.
Thank you.
I have to be absent for civic function 15 minutes.
In 15 minutes?
No. I'm during the meeting.
During the meeting. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Confirmation of the agenda, noting that there are 2 additional pages, key reports project, an extra page after page 89, which you should have, and a resolution to exclude the public, which is an extra page to be inserted after page 165. So I'll move confirmation of the agenda. Thank you. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest?
I'm not particularly interested.
You are interested. Thank you, Councillor.
And you want that declared?
Is that a conflict?
We'll record that. Okay, so public forum. No instances today of any presentations from the public. Move on then to item number 5, which is the Finance Committee meeting of the 15th of May 2014. Those notes are under item 5, pages 6 through to 13. Would somebody who was present at that meeting move those as a true and correct record? Thank you, Karina. Seconder, Councillor Tooman. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Finance Committee action list, item number 6 on page 16. Are there any items on that action list that require comment?
It's for clarity, Mr. Chair, the last item on the action list, the committee members requested that performance measures be reviewed as part of the annual plan process by the Chair and Deputy Chair of the Finance Committee. I think that was part of the long-term plan process. It was correct, rather than a part of the annual plan, which has already been adopted.
So we need to amend that to refer
to long-term plan process.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a question. Are the items that are completed going to be removed? Is that the intention, or will they be continually on it but tracked as a closed item?
I think that when they're completed, they stay on for one more round so that everyone can see that they're completed. Yep.
Right, thank you.
Yep. Deputy Mayor?
Just under the action list, item 12, there's mention under the comments about the issue at the Marae and the parking problems. I just wanted to report that Lady Turepi Moxon is very happy with the staff suggestion. She has emailed me, so I just wanted to update councillors that it appears that that issue has been resolved to the satisfaction of all parties.
Thank you. And I think that discussion is covered in one of the agenda items.
Covered in several other places.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Gallagher.
Sorry, it's going back slightly, but in terms of format, I assume that on the basis of that, everything else has happened today under delegated authority to this committee, but just stress it's really important if there's any item for further recommendation to council, easy to make sure it's there. Now, I've assumed that there's nothing for recommendation at all. Is that correct?
I don't quite follow.
No, I'm just saying that all of the items here, this is the final point of consideration by council in terms of my understanding. just looking quickly through this agenda paper, that's all it is.
I suggest that is the case, Councillor Gallagher, but if we do find any through this process, we'll make
Sorry?
If we do find any through this process, then it does need to go to council. I will note that, and in future I'll make sure that's referenced in the agenda as well.
Yeah, that's all right. So we know that's it. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll move the action list. I have a seconder for that, please. Thank you. Those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Item number 7 is the recommended dates for reports to be presented to the Finance Committee. I'll so move. Do I have a seconder?
Yep.
Thank you, Your Worship. Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Item number 8, the 10-year plan monitoring report, which is on page 20. I would like to move that we take the report as read and now ask for Richard and his team to present,
Ian
speak to their report.
Ian Anderson and Reneel Prasad will present the report before I hand over to my team. We've handed out some additional information to councillors this afternoon. The first one is a piece of paper that looks like this. What we intend to do today, in agreement with the Chair of the Finance Committee and the Deputy Chair, is use the Statement of Comprehensive Income, or the Profit and Loss Statement, and the balance sheet is the basis for going through the finances. It is information that's already included in the report, the detailed report, but it's an attempt to focus the discussion down on those key variances. So Ian and Reneel will take us through that in a moment, but those pages aren't new information. It's just blown out information that was previously included in the pack. It replaced information, well, it's the same information as page 65. What we've also handed out to council is a piece of paper that looks like this, which is a tabular Word document. This reflects the feedback and a number of questions raised by Councillor Mallett on the finance report agenda and the responses by staff. So to ensure that we run an efficient meeting and to ensure also that councillors are aware of those questions that were asked, I've provided a documented copy of those questions and those answers. So that's what I've handed out. What I have also want to talk to is, before I hand over, on the May results. The information that's in the council papers and what Ian and Reneel will be talking to are the 31 May results. You will be aware that today is the 3rd of July. We are in the process of closing the financial year. So for those that aren't aware of the accounting process, it generally does take a good 3 weeks at the end of the financial year to close the year. We are also, on the 4th of August, will be visited by our auditors who must audit those information. So council is never really in a position that it can release its official result for the financial year until the auditors have completed their work. From a preliminary assessment, however, I can say that council will finish the year in a favourable position, and that favourable position is similar to that that's presented to the May results, and that's largely driven by a favourable position in terms of development contributions, a favourable position in terms of depreciation, and Ian will go into that in a little bit more detail when he does his presentation, what's driven that, and interest expense as well. So from a balancing the books target, which is the long-term plan target, we will finish up, and again this is a draft number to be finalised closer towards September when we finalise the audit, of about $11 million favourable, of which $9 million of that will be development contributions.
Mr. Chair, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but I'm still somewhat astonished by this document. I'm just getting my head around. Is this now a policy that any time a councillor asks a question, we're now going to get a written summary of that question and the answer and subsequently?
It's definitely not a policy, Councillor Wilson. I just, in agreement with the Chair and the Deputy Chair, dealt with the quantum of the questions that were asked, rather than having those questions asked during the meeting.
Right.
That it would have been more effective for the councillors' time during the committee to have those questions tabled, rather than have Councillor Mallett go through those questions in this forum.
Right. Okay. All of these are just questions that Gary asked.
That's
Yep.
correct. Yes, that's correct.
Very thorough, Councillor Mallett.
Dizzy Beaver.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just a follow-up question. So we're not accepting this in the resolution, or this is not part of the report. Or is that what you are intending, that it is part of the
No,
report?
it's just for information only. So it won't be part of the report.
Many of these items are on work programs or work plans or fall under strategy and policy committee. Should maybe be discussed at team meetings.
Could I suggest that we perhaps, at this stage anyway, focus on the new page 65, which is the statement of comprehensive income, because I think that will deal with a number of the questions that Councillor Mallett has raised, and this is part of what we will be voting on, page 65, in terms of that explaining the previous page 65.
Angela and Ewan, perhaps you could just consider those, treat them as if they were just verbal questions that had been asked, and those are the responses that the staff have given us. Treat them as a, I know what you're saying, it's not a report to be received, but you could treat them as if I had asked the question in the meeting, and what we've tried to do is give the staff some time to research the answers to the questions, and sometimes I'll come back and say, look, I can't understand your implement question, but there's not a formal report to be received by the committee. So it's treat them as if they were verbal questions that were asked here, I guess.
So I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. So you asked these, but you didn't get an answer, and now we're getting the answer now? Or in fact, did you ask them and get the answer at the meeting?
No, I asked these questions. I wrote these questions. I went through the report. Those are the questions that I raised. I sent them to Rob and Richard. God, Gary, you raised these at the meeting. The meeting will last till midnight. Can you send them out to the staff, please? I'll get the staff to respond as they can, so the meeting is not unduly held up by your questions. If you're happy with the responses, we should let the other councillors know that the questions have been asked, because they may have a similar question, or it may trigger something they thought, oh, that's a good question, Gary, well done. That could happen. Some councillors might say that. Some might not. Gee, you're worth your weight in gold, Gary. Something like that might come through.
All right. Does that answer your question? Yeah, that's absolutely awesome.
Very helpful.
Can we perhaps we'll come back now to the CFO's comments about the 30th of June results, and then we'll go back and look at the May results, on which the financials on page 65 and Councillor Mallett's queries were based.
Yep. So in short, we are finalising the June result. The June result is looking favourable, and when we finalise it will be finalised appropriately towards September once the audit is signed off. I've discussed numbers. Now, Ian is going to use the other report that I tabled. We need to focus on the discussion of financial results, and Ian and Renelle, and that is focused entirely on the 31 May 2014 results. So I'll hand over to Ian.
Okay, so good afternoon, Chair, and through the Chair, good afternoon, Your Worship, good afternoon, Councillors. So I would normally sit here and take you through the graphical presentation of the financial results for the 31st of May, but in agreement with the Chair and the Deputy Chair, we've chosen to adopt the approach where I'm going to talk to you through the Statement of Comprehensive Income, also known as the Profit and Loss Statement, and the balance sheet, take you through the major variances and explain to you what's driving those and what's behind them to give you a better understanding of the financial position of the Council. So we're going to try that today. So at the moment I'm on the top page, Statement of Comprehensive Income, and just to show you, I'm just to be a little bit confusing, I'm going to start at the bottom number, which as you'll see in about the middle of the page, I've marked each of the variances with a letter of the alphabet, ABC. I'm going to just want to talk about I first, which is the very bottom one, and if you run your eye across the you'll see that the Council has an actual position in the first number column of 41.6 million. Our budgeted position at 31st of May was meant to be a 2.9 deficit. So in other words, we have 44.6 million favourable. I'm going to talk to you through about what drives that, but that is the position we are at today. The main contributors, if I look at the narrative to the right-hand side, the main contributors are development levies, depreciation, vest assets, interest charges. But clearly there's a lot more behind it, and we'll go through that now in a little bit more detail. So if we go back up to the top of that financial statement and we look at the first line, rates, showing a variance in the variance column of 1,194,000. I'll just ask everyone's following where I am on the report?
Yes, it's really clear.
Yeah, thank you. So we're showing a variance of 1.1 million, and the explanation for that is that right now at 31st of May, that's very much a timing variance. Timing because the way the budget's been loaded and the actual transactions are occurring. We've looked forward to the 31st of June, the 30th of June 2014 forecast that, and we expect the rates position to be 250,000 favourable. What is driving that is we have received additional revenue or more revenue than budget from rates penalties, and we have also paid out, we have got less remissions being given than we had budgeted, and that's what's going to drive that $250,000 favourable variance in the rates line. Okay, so just to reiterate, position at May was a favourable variance of 1.1, but we're going to end up at 250,000 favourable. I'm happy to take any questions as we go through, so please feel free to interrupt me. I'll move down to the next line, B, the revenue from other activities. We're running favourable, 1.1 million on that as well. So that revenue is favourable due to trade waste revenue, building consent and resource consent. So those are the three primary drivers of that favourable result, but I will just note that there is a partial offset of that coming in from the unfavourable position that we have in our parking revenue area. So in other words, if we didn't have the parking revenue unfavourable, we would be more favourable in the revenue from those other items. And that is what is driving that number. The next item we'll take you to is subsidies and grants capital. Item C, so we're running favourable, 2.3 million. That's been driven from the New Zealand Transport Agency subsidy we're receiving on the ring road, and principally that's due to the fact that that project is subject to an advanced funding agreement, which means we are getting subsidy in at a higher rate than we would normally expect because of that agreement. Yes, Councillor Mel.
I assume the subsidies paid out as, and maybe Chris might be able to answer this, or is the subsidy paid out as the work is done, or is it, how is it paid out?
Yes, the claims are made monthly, Councillor Mel, and they're paid out based on our expenditure for the period.
So this means, so that would suggest that the work has been done quicker than expected, is that right?
No, in this case, Council went into an advanced funding agreement with the, okay, when you say faster than the original LTP had intended. So we were able to bring the work forward, and NZTA effectively advanced funded it, which meant that Council's obligations for the project did not exceed its original LTP obligations. So they basically giving us bridging finance until such times we would have done it, and then at that point we will repay that funding to them.
Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to say is this just a timing difference really, and we'll reverse out.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll reverse out of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next item, item D, development and financial contributions. We're in favourable 8.9 million. The budget, and I think there's been a lot of discussion about this over the year, but again, this really is just a reflection of the high level of development that the city's seeing in both residential and the commercial sectors. And Richard mentioned it earlier that it's going to be a significant contributing factor to the year-end result and the favourable position that we have.
Just the other point to note, councillors, is the approach by this council is to be conservative, realistic and conservative in the estimations of our development contributions, so that actual is against that conservative budget.
Okay, the next item is item E. The heading is other revenue, and you'll see we're running favourable 10.5 million. There's a number of items to make this up, but substantially what's driving the favourable variance here is the revenue we recognise from our vested assets. So a reminder, Council, the vested assets are when subdivisional development is transferred from the developer over to the Council's control. We recognise the asset, and the other side of the entry is we recognise that as a revenue item on our P&L. It's a non-cash item. So that 10.5 million has been substantially driven by the high volume of vested assets that have been transferred to the city in this financial year. Okay. Thank you. I'll move on to the next item and we're into the expenditure block now, and I'll talk to item F, which is depreciation, running at 3 million favourable. So again, what's driving this is the budget. The LTP budget, when it was prepared 2 years ago, or nearly 3 years ago now, we anticipated a greater impact from asset revaluations throughout that period. Those have not been as significant as we had anticipated. And so the result of that is that the asset values are lower than we had thought, and the lower value drives a lower depreciation value. And that's what you're seeing now. And when we talk to the balance sheet, you'll see the flow and effect through on the overall asset value for the City Council as well. But that's what's driving that. So there's nothing, there's a small amount that's a result of the deferred capital expenditure program, but the principal or the primary reason for that is the lower asset value base. Moving on to item G, finance costs, favourable 1.6. Again, that's been driven by the favourable debt and interest rates, or favourable debt balance and interest rates. We'll talk about debt a little bit later, but later on, but we know that debt's running significantly below the budgeted amount, so we're getting a benefit from that. Item H, gains. I know we all enjoy talking about this one, I do. So this is a non-cash item. It's the gains from the movement in the value of our financial instruments, which is our swap rates on the financial instruments that we have. At the same time as that number is large at 17.9 million. We don't normally budget for it because it is a non-cash item in terms of our budget process. The other item that's impacting on that 17.9, and Richard alluded to it earlier in his discussion, is that it currently includes the sale proceeds of Council's investment in the Hamilton Riverview Hotel, but we still have to process the final accounting entries, which will be completed in June, and that will see the net amount reflected in the June accounts once that clearance provision is finalised. So to put that into other language, which might be easier to understand, is that we're carrying the investment in the Riverview Hotel at 6 million in our books. We will effectively now, we've sold that, we got 11 for it, so there'll be approximately a 5 million gain on that, and that will materialise through this account for the year end.
So does that mean that the gains figures is overstated by 6 million there?
At this point, yes.
Mm-hmm. So the asset is still in our books, and you say you've accounted for the asset and the receipt of the asset, the receipt for the sale in the same.
I'm afraid at the moment we've just got a little bit of a timing issue. Council Mallet between 31st of May accounts and the 30th of June accounts. Okay. It has been given for today's July. It has now been removed off the books for the 30th of June result.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the last item there is item I, which I discussed at the beginning of when I started talking. So again, just to reiterate that sizable financial variance of 44.6 has been driven by those four key areas.
And before Ian moves to the balance sheet, what Ian has just described is the variance from an accounting surplus point of view. If you scroll 2 pages into an A4 page that looks like that, and you don't have to do it now, that provides reconciliation between the balance in the books target, which is the first set of blue lines, and the purple line at the bottom, which is the accounting definition. It just shows how those various variances make up those totals. So we have a positive balanced book budget measure of 13.256 million variance, and that 44.607 million variance at the very bottom of the page. That page there just will consist here if at some stage you want to understand the difference between our balancing the books target, what goes into it, and the accounting definition of profit as well. I'll let you do the balance sheet now.
So, and that just reinforces that the balance of the books measure is a subset of the overall operating result. The operating result being more of a traditional accounting P&L result for the City Council. Okay, then if councillors don't mind, we will turn the page and move to the statement headed Statement of Financial Position, also referred to as the balance sheet. And same approach as for the Statement of Comprehensive Income. We've gone through and earmarked the major variances, and I'll now talk through those. So we'll start with the top one under current assets, cash and cash equivalents, showing an unfavourable variance of 30.2 million. Just clear, this is a classification issue with our cash term deposits. It will be corrected for the year-end result. And if you look down under, there's another J reference here, halfway down the page under the line item called Other Financial Assets. You'll see there that that's showing a favourable result of 32 million. And clearly what's happened there with the classification here is we've got a term deposit sitting under that item. There should be sitting in the other item. So we will correct that. So there genuinely is no variance, just the way we presented the data.
Ian, have your department got any twink?
Twink?
Yeah.
No.
Should have twinked those things out.
I don't make mistakes.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not. Right, thank you. Moving on.
There's a joke, Ian.
Yes, it was.
No.
I'm smiling on the inside.
Good, good.
Item K. This is our plant, property and equipment, showing unfavourable of $235 million. No alarm, don't panic, Mr. Mannering. This is our asset database. It runs at about budget at 3.7, billion, it is 3.7. So this comes back to the earlier point I made in terms of our asset revaluation. The accounting rules state that any organisation has to review their asset values to ensure that they're carried at a fair value. We have to do that. We review our asset values every year to do that, make sure that we are doing that, satisfying the accounting standard requirements in that. The LTP had assumed, and I keep coming back to that, the LTP had assumed that we would have to do more valuations. The valuation impact would be greater than it has been. It was not. We have successfully completed those revaluations, though, I should say, and the figures that you're seeing today reflect those, which were substantially for the infrastructure area, that's all the water, wastewater, stormwater pipes and roading. And so that's where that issue has simply been driven from, is that the asset movements were not as great as we had thought. And again, the flow-through fact is that lower asset values result in lower depreciation, and we saw that in the earlier statement. Yes.
So that's quite a major. We would not ordinarily have a $235 million reduction in our property.
Yeah, and again, it's not
in one revaluation period.
No, and again, just to be clear, it's not really a reduction. We had assumed that our asset value was here. We assumed the asset values were going to go up, and they've only come up that much.
So can we revalue them up, subject to having a valuation done afterwards, or?
Well, what we're saying is that the carrying amount...
Had they been previously revalued at the higher figure, and now the revaluation has resulted in a $325 million adjustment?
No, so obviously I'm not being clear. So what I'm saying is if we look at that line, if we go to the first number there, $3,192,000, that is the current valuation of the city's assets for its entire asset inventory, based on current market valuation to date, right? We thought when we did the LTP 3 years ago that with everything coming into play, we were going to think the value was going to be higher than that. There was going to be greater pressure in the market.
So we never actually revalued them in the accounts.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And it's valuation is something that's done quite cyclical. Sorry.
And it's part of the difficulties you have when you're trying to forecast a 10-year plan and trying to reflect where you believe the valuations of your infrastructure are going to be. We know for accounting standards we're required to evaluate our assets on a cyclical basis. We then use the best information we can to estimate what those valuations are going to be, and we did that. It was the best estimate at the time. And however, when it came to actually undertaking the valuations, they did not. Reality was different to what we estimated. You also will recall from our discussion regarding annual plan, we have reset the valuations of the assets for the annual plan. We also reset for the annual plan the impact on depreciation as well. So the depreciation, positive depreciation variance that Ian mentioned on the previous page, it was also reflected as an annual adjustment for the annual plan period as well. So we've now made sure that the annual plan for 14-15 now aligns with this new valuation data that we have available with us as well.
Is that awesome?
No, I was going to. Ian, you said that this revaluation was primarily infrastructure. So, what are the significant assets that weren't included? Presumably, it's investment buildings and
investment buildings, investment assets. Council amount are revalued annually under the accounting standard.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
When I say the other, I mean parks and gardens, community type assets.
And like this building here, so
another operational property. Another operational property.
Okay.
Buildings.
So those are the significant assets that weren't revalued, and they'll be triggered next term.
Yeah, the council's got I think 16 asset categories running from things like operational land, community assets, infrastructural water, infrastructural stormwater. We don't revalue the entire asset inventory at one go. Yep. We tend to do it in blocks. We tend to do it at a category level. This time around, we were looking at the revaluation of the infrastructure categories, which was as I say, water, wastewater, etc.
Roads?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So by far, we've revalued the most significant portion of our asset base.
Well, this.
Yep. That's correct.
Thank you.
Excellent. Is there any other questions at that point? Well, we move to item L, investment property. So we're showing a unfavourable there of 9.2 million. I'd like to explain this is due to sales of properties made last financial year. So what's happened is last financial year we sold two substantial properties, and I'll talk about them in a sec. We did not budget for this particular item on the balance sheet, was not amended for this year's accounts, and that's what's driving that variance. So if you would look at last year's annual report, you would see we sold properties on 32 Kaimiro Street at 7.88 million, which also referred to as the CI Monroe building. We also sold 109 Ward Street, 1.7 million. So that's what's driving that variance. Had we adjusted the budget, then this variance would disappear. So that's what's driving that. Is that clear?
Well, last financial year, you mean the year into 2013?
12-13 financial year, yes. So the actual figure of 41.6 million was 100% correct. That's just we're measuring against a budget that assumed those properties were still included. Right, thank you. We've covered the next item, J, which included the cash term deposit. So we'll move down to M. You'll see we've got two M's. So we've got M and M.
It's a singer, isn't he?
Yeah. So again, this is our debt, our overall debt, and what we do in an accounting terms is we have to split it between current and non-current, current being anything that's due to materialise or to occur in the immediate 12 months, and anything longer term is the long-term stuff. Now, if you take both those sums and add them together, you'll come to the total overall debt that we report of 408.8 million. So that number is included in the body of the main report. And just to talk about that in terms of forecast position, we are forecasting that number will be lower this financial year, and that is the result of asset sales, e.g. the Novotel Hotel, the deferred capital expenditure, which we've quantified now for this financial year, and the fact that we've received substantially additional development contributions. And those are the three primary drivers as to why we are running below, and that number is the same. That reinforces number that was presented as part of the annual plan report. Council has considered a couple of weeks back, and it's also in the body of the main report as well.
So just to be clear, Ian, that 408 million is the figure that we target where we talk about our debt cap of 440 million, isn't it?
Correct, yes.
So we're well under it.
Yeah. Okay, and then last is just a note on the equity. You'll see right down the bottom on note N, unfavourable 243, so equity's down now. The reality is that substantially is the impact from the asset values I've talked about earlier. So with those asset values not going up as much as we had anticipated, it does have that impact on equity for the city, and that explains that. So in terms of today's presentation of the financial results, I've covered both the statement of comprehensive income, P&L, the balance sheet, and I'm happy to take any questions on anything, any other issues you might have. Yes.
So I've just got a couple of when I say a couple more than a couple, but they're not as many as I send out.
A couple is two.
It depends what language
Can
you're
we
talking.
look at those two and we'll see if there
I'll
are
move an
any other
extension already.
And this is maybe not to you, Ian, but and someone else, Imana. When does the deferred capital resolution come up for discussion?
So once we finalise the year-end result, we'll have a far better picture. So I envisage the July-August meeting we will bring it forward
To this meeting?
Absolutely. There is a standard deferred capital expenditure report we bring in the committee for review and approval. Last year on the 16th of August, and I'm not suggesting anything different to that at this time.
At the moment, it's looking like 14 million.
That's the net number, yes.
So it's net of third-party contributions.
Yes.
When you say net, is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So previously, when we've come to the committee with the deferred capital expenditure, we've just been talking about the number of projects. So this time around, we went out to the organisation and quantified that, and that the detailed information is sitting within the body of the report. Councillor Mallett.
Thank you. A couple of these.
Second question.
That was 1A.
That was one of two.
These are ones off the schedule you got. It's question number 4, and I think it's to Brian. It's regarding, it's the same issue we had last meeting regarding difficulty recruiting staff and consequently having to use consultants. Is that still an issue, Brian?
Getting better, Councillor. We've just managed to recruit a very good senior planning person, which is fantastic. But we're still struggling with experienced building officers in particular, and I think that's a shortage of that skill set right throughout the country, and particularly because of the effect of Christchurch rebuild at the moment. So, yeah, we're lucky in that we do have good consultants that we can use until we secure our right staff. My perspective on this, I'm not prepared to employ anybody unless they're really good, and I'll continue to search for the right people until we find them.
You're still getting high volume, is that right?
Yeah, we're still getting relatively high volumes, but we are managing those volumes.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Can I ask, are there any other councillors who have questions of Ian or Ronald or Richard?
I just like the way it's been presented this time, so thanks, Richard and Ian. But I just think presenting it this way is quite easy, keeping it on the final 2 pages. Doing it as a traditional balance sheet.
All right.
I've got another one, page
questions?
3 or 4.
3 or 4? 4. Okay, we'll take 4.
Okay. Page 31 of the agenda. We're forced to try and identify performance of our stadiums, or stadia, depending on where you went to school, I suppose, by these graphs. I asked the question, it's difficult for the reader to determine whether or not the increased unbudgeted revenue for the stadiums and the examples where Super 15, All Blacks versus Argentina exceeds the unbudgeted cost. The answer was this Waikato Stadium, Seddon Park, year to date, is $132,000 surplus to budget. This was wholly driven by additional event revenue over and above the cost of staging those events at the Waikato Stadium. I'm reading that and I'm looking at that, trying to guesstimate what those bars, it looks to me like our revenue from the stadium is about 2.2 million from the stadiums, and our expenses are about 4.6. You have to guesstimate because of the way the bars do it, showing a loss of 4.2 million for the stadiums. Is that accurate? Is that?
Can you just tell us what page we're at?
Page
we've all got
31.
We've all got copies of.
Oh, sorry, you're talking about.
So
I gave
it's useful to tell us.
So that was the agenda page. It is point number 22. Beg your pardon. So I was giving you the agenda page that the report's on.
You mean question? Oh, yeah, point.
So your point or question number 22, which refers to page 31 in the agenda. Yep.
So what part of the question hasn't been answered?
So I just say this. I see it. I just can't understand. I can't quite get clear how much money we're losing or making on the stadiums. And the response was we're $132,000 surplus to budget. But my answer was just how much, not whether we're up and down on budget, just how much the actual losses or gains are. And I'm estimating, because it's difficult with those bar graphs, and I said it looks to me like the revenue is about 2.2 million and the expenses are about 4.6 million. And I appreciate these are just direct costs, aren't they, Sean? These aren't including overheads and depreciation and things, are they?
Yeah, they do include some overheads, yes. Right. The graphic is roughly right. I don't know the exact numbers. You're right. The stadium do operate at a loss.
But that loss is $132 less than we thought the loss was going to be. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just couldn't understand that from the.
All right, are we ready to?
No. Just one more. Page 26. Point 26, page 31. The Claudelands Event Centre. I asked, was there a business plan made and who did it? How's it going? The response was a business case for Clauden's Event Centre was created a number of years ago for council in advance of its construction. At the time of the creation of the current 10-year plan, that business case was replaced with a revised budget for the business growth, which is reported and monitored against monthly via this report. That budget was developed by management with the support of an external advisors, just very simply, are we still hitting our targets? I've never seen the business case for Clauden's, either the first one or the current one. Who's monitoring? Is it?
In terms of the hitting our target against the current plan, yes, we are. In terms of the original business case, we're clearly not.
Okay, and the current business case is for what? A loss or a gain of what?
For a loss.
How much?
I can't answer that question right now. I'll have to provide information at a later stage. I'll bring it to you at a later stage.
Okay. All right, so
Chair, but just in reference to that, could I suggest that a note is made to circulate the business case, the health report, the health review of the business case that resets the revenue budget for the 10-year plan? Could you please circulate those two documents to all councillors? I mean, councillors returning, of course, will already have those, but it might be helpful for new councillors to receive those. I mean, the documents in the system anyway, but just so that it's quick and easy. Thanks.
thanks, Your Worship. All right,
Just one more. Point 27, page 35, a question about community development program, and we talk about something called a tactile map and 2 additional youth-focused projects. I don't know what a tactile map is, or
You get to touch it.
I could actually assist if
suppose
you
so,
like,
yeah.
because the Deputy Mayor, myself and Councillor Young, of course, attended the launch of the tactile map, which is a first for New Zealand, and it was held in the reception lounge. I think all councillors were invited to attend.
so what is it?
It's for those who are visually impaired. It enables them to find their way around the city.
Where is it?
If you like a copy, Dee can get you a copy. It's actually quite an amazing document, and it was a great event, I have to say. And we're a first in New Zealand to produce one.
So a tactile map is something you give out to people, and it's kind of like
It's for visually impaired.
it's braille or something, isn't it?
It's for visually impaired people, both large size and braille.
Okay, and that was funded with government money. Okay. Thank you.
all right. So I'd like to move the recommendation that the
Could
report.
I just have if I may, thank you. I actually just wanted to, in regard to page 27, I just wanted to acknowledge the General Manager in relation to the theatres, because there's nothing new in terms of variations here, that we've been tracking the same through the year with our hotspots. I just wanted to say good work. It's great that we're looking pretty good there with the theatres, because we, of course, we've been tracking not so good against the revenue, so thanks for that.
Thank you, Your Worship. All right, so the report has, let me just go back to our recommendation 7, that the report be received. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Is there any discussion on the report? I'd like to perhaps before we vote, just make a couple of comments. One, I think the preliminary results for the year ended 30th of June 2014 look excellent in terms of the way that this organisation, from a citizen's perspective, which is where I was 3 and 4 years ago, is an excellent outcome. I'd like to formally applaud the last council for steering the ship around and setting some targets to balance the books, and also to recognise the new council that's here now for maintaining that steady ship. This outcome that we've got, or that we will have when the accounts are finalised, does reflect the hard work and commitment by staff and council working collaboratively to achieve these targets that were set. The second comment that I'd like to make, and thank you, Councillor King, for referring to this, is the set of financials that we've had presented to us today, and the notes attached to that. I think it's a good time now that we should be reflecting on the level of paper-based results that we are getting for finance meetings. There certainly is a lot of information in here, which I believe tying in with reports like this and the new financial system, for which the organisation went live on the 1st of July, 3 days ago. It's a good opportunity to revisit the financial information that we're receiving for each meeting. And so I'd perhaps like councillors to reflect over the next month or 6 weeks before the next meeting as to what value they see in each of these reports, which reports we should be retaining going forward, and whether a report similar to this would be as a lead document for each of our meetings might be more useful going forward, or whether we can alter this around a little more in order to make it a lot more useful.
Just to add, I've agreed with the chair of the finance committee and the deputy chair because of the pressures of the first month end under the new financial system in July, and we're planning for it, and we're very confident that we'll have a successful month end. But they've given me the discretion to prepare just a shorter form financial report in the July meeting, and that will be basically a balance sheet, a profit and loss statement, and an activity statement, which will show the performance by activities. The information will be available, but I just have a request your patience as we bring a slightly shorter form forward in July, and then look to bring that back up to a new form of reporting going forward beyond that.
So this is a work in progress, and I think it would be useful both for particularly from the experienced councillors, those who have been here in earlier terms, perhaps to also provide some input as to the usefulness in the reports that they have been receiving in the past. So with the motion on the floor, I'd ask for those in favour, please to say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Renelle. Next item on the agenda is item number 9, the key projects report and business case update. Welcome, Carol and Blair. I'll take the report as read and ask for your presentation.
Through the chair, we're happy to take questions on the report.
Just one question I have: the report from PwC on the project management framework. I assume, and again, this might be because I'm relatively new to council, but I assume that those 8 items that have been identified by PwC are now in the work program, and there will be a timeline established for completing those and reporting back either through audit and risk or back through this committee.
Yes, I'll need Carol to expand a bit more, but certainly we will report back through audit and risk committee as the first point, and give high-level updates to this committee as well. Page 68 has identified some of the immediate actions that Carol has already taken in response to
Thank you. Further questions? Okay, well, I'll put the motion that the report be received. Do I have a seconder for that? Thanks, Gary. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Item number 10, the IS program quarterly update. Ian and David, welcome. I'll take the report as read and ask you for your presentation on any matters you wish to present to the committee.
Good afternoon, Chair, Your Worship, Councillors. This is the regular report that we give every quarterly. I want to note that it's not the strategic report that we promised you. That is scheduled to come in October. We present that council in October, the latest strategic plan. The key elements in this report are the audit report for the most recent audit that was completed by Audit New Zealand. That was tabled at the last Audit Risk Committee.
Ian, could you just put your mic down? It's a little bit hard to hear from.
Is that better? Can you hear now?
That's better, thank you. Thank you.
Sorry. So the key activity in this period has been a upgrade to our document management system and our bookings and point of sale systems as part of our currency program, and of course the finance project that went live on 1 July. That went live very successfully. It's been pretty smooth, it's fair to say. That's a really substantial milestone for us, because that means now of the 10 change programs that started in PIF 12015 or Phoenix, they're all live now. So that's pretty good for us. We've got a few things to tidy up, the second phase of assets, some e-services, and obviously to complete the finance project. But after that is finished towards the end of this calendar year, we'll just be up to currency or keeping the applications current. So that's a really good milestone for us. And that is well within the budget allocated. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
Thanks, Ian. Any questions? There being none, I move that the report be received, item 10 in the report, and call for seconder. Thanks, Rena. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thanks. Item number 11, the Hamilton Ring Road update. Welcome, Chris. Welcome, Tal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're just happy to take questions on the report. I think the project continues to go well. There hasn't been much change since the last report to council, but it is up on track for the deliverable date specified. Take any questions.
I noticed that the stairs have been put in place at the Victory Bridge, but I understand there has been some issues under health and safety with them, and I noticed there that there's a little sign on there where you said open in May, and somebody, of course, was late again. Is there an issue with these stairs?
Yeah, look, my understanding is that we've got a mismatch between the foundations and the prefabricated stairs. So we're trying to resolve that technicality. I'm not sure where we are with that now.
We're just liaising with the designers to get the solution approved. We have it ready to roll out and install, but we're just wanting to make sure that we can actually still effectively sign it off with the amendment in place.
So the background that I think is the stairs were prefabricated. Then we ran into problems with the foundations, so we've had to re-engineer the foundations, and the foundations were put in. The stairs, when they were previously prefabricated and came to site, and they just didn't quite line up. So it's a slight mismatch that we're just trying to get right before we open them.
I just wonder because I noticed some kids are running up and down them. And will there be any liability if
we do have them gated off?
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
It's around the technicality of signing them off that we're preventative measure. We've got them gated off, so we just want to make sure we've got that to sign off if we open to the public.
So my understanding is that it'll be structurally sound and safe, but there's a visual issue in how it looks and just the sign off. So, our preference would be not to have them used until such time as we've got the appropriate documentation.
Thank you. Councillor McPherson and then Councillor Green.
On item or paragraph 21, risk of sale, the page 121. Yep.
Sorry, what page, Dave?
121.
It says 121.
Paragraph 21.
At least they're different on yours. Sorry, the
Removal of the bird.
Yep.
You talk about the redistribution of on-street parking into adjacent areas over in front of the ride. One of the issues that was perhaps more important than the redistribution of parking itself was the pedestrian crossing now on Wairere Drive, that section there, and that was the subject of a submission to us in the annual plan. So it wasn't so much, it wasn't the parking per se, it was what that forced pedestrians to have to cross the road there. That was the complaint and the request for action. So what's happened with that? That's the first part. The second part is I'm puzzled as to why this is an issue being addressed now, but the construction is well underway and not prior to. I know there was some consultation prior to the design stage. I'm not sure if this issue was covered or not, or no one thought about it then.
Yep, so through the chair. The first part of the question as it relates to the pedestrian crossing, you're right, that was the only sticking point through the designation process. And as a result, we've actually introduced, separate to the pedestrian crossings at the crossroads, a mid-block pedestrian crossing designated solely for pedestrians, and also a refuge island in between the Marai and the Clyde Street. So you're right, they're being constructed as part of this works and are not delivered separately, they are integrated. The second part, as it relates to paragraph 21, is in relation to the parking, and that is the redistribution of parking is expected to some extent into other side streets. So effectively it's the sports grounds, overflow parking from the Marai and some school drop-off, you're right, and then the pedestrian aspect of that is how they get across the road, and adjacent to those primary side streets as pedestrian facilities are provided as part of the works, in line with consultation plans.
Was that all done beforehand? And I'm also thinking about the next bit further south, past, because there's schools on both sides of the road, kids on the other side of the road have to access. It's quite a heavily populated area, though not along the strip itself, but back from the strip and on the side. And I'm just wondering how much attention you've given that complaint of sort of retrofitting and design that seems to have taken place here.
I think this one does relate to the parking specifically around the Marai and the school drop-off. So we've been working very closely with the Board of Trustees of the Knighton School in relation to what the new traffic layout's going to be. The retrospective component of this is enabling access to the gravel car park area, which is on the northern side of the Marai. So that's been something that's sat outside of the project, and I guess is maximising the asset that's available there for the public and users of that area, in addition to what the issues were around getting across the road as part of the project. I wouldn't say it's redesigned, but it's something that we've a fringe piece which we're optimising as we go.
Yeah, I'm a bit worried about the as we go aspect of it.
So, Councillor, can I just be clear? The second issue you raised is about between what location are you talking about?
Well, there's two. I can see that there's an issue between Clyde and Cambridge, and I can envisage future issues further south of Cambridge as well, because there's community facilities on one side of the road, people living on the other side.
Look, I probably can't address it adequately here, but I'm happy to go away. Look, my understanding is that we've got designation requirements and we're talking with the community about optimum locations for these. We will certainly go back and I'll go back with Carl and just review the things that we're still to build, and just be satisfied that they are in the best fit. So, we talk to a number of parties and try and find the optimum location. It's got to fit technically too with some of the parts of the project. That's all I could probably do at this meeting is commit to going back and just reviewing that and make sure we've got them in the optimum location and in accordance with our designation.
Yeah, the worry is that the designation seems to say that crossing points, pedestrians and cyclists for that matter should all be at the signals at the main intersections. And human nature and Councillor Blind Freddie all say that no, the kids, if they dropped off in Fox Street, would cross straight over at that point, or the people go to the Mariah or whatever. So we have to envisage human behaviour, safety.
Look, we try and take that into account in communication with the schools and everybody. So, look, I'll be fairly confident we've got them in the optimum locations. So the designation does have some mid-block requirements in there as well. But look, I'm happy to go away and review the things that we haven't built yet, just to make sure that we're well anchored with the community, that we've got the right desire lines in the most optimum location.
Councillor Green?
My question is following on from Leo's notes. I was wondering if you'd like to explain for us when you think they'll be.
We believe we are in the final throes of confirming the remedial works. We're expecting to have them in place during July.
By the end of this, by the end of this month.
You're going to take us all to know.
By the end of this month.
Councillor Young.
Right, I have a question. You mentioned about the risk description, the design issue could cause implications. That's the $1 million thing. So is it part of your monthly monitoring, any design fault or anything need to be done? Is it already ongoing?
Look, it's been ongoing since the beginning of the project.
Yeah. And well, I receive constantly people in the Huntington area. Leaving Huntington, there's only 3 exits.
Yeah.
And for ongoing onto Huntington, Waverley Drive, turning right is quite difficult and quite dangerous as well. Would that be considered as one of the design issues?
That particular stretch of road is not part of this contract. It's part of the ring road that we completed a few years ago.
Yeah.
I'm certainly aware of the safety concerns that people have in that area, and we've had some safety auditing done, and we're going through a process at the moment of
We're looking into
look at that. But one of the options there might be to turn it into lift in, lift out, which that's big community issues as well.
That's what I heard, and that would be a disaster. Or turning left.
But look, we've got some safety auditing going with safety people looking at that and just looking at the current situation there.
But it's been
not part of this particular project.
It's not part of this project.
It's not part of this project.
Okay. There being no further questions, I will move that the report be received. Have a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Leary. Those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank
Chair,
you.
can I just I just want to acknowledge Tal and the work that he did with the marae. I have seen the communications between Tal and the marae and Te Reiti, and I have to say your method of communication is fantastic. And just the right pitch, and actually you've done a lot of work to resolve that issue, as has the Deputy Mayor, and I think it does need to be recognised because, there was a lot to go through with that and a lot of people to talk to, and I thought your communication was fantastic, so thank you for that.
Thank you. All right, so we move now on to item number 12, which is the Puketi 2 quarterly project update. You might as well stay in your seats. So I'll take the report as read, and if you wish to present an update, and we'll take some questions.
No, pretty much happy to take the report as read. Once again, the project is going well, but we're due to complete the Puketi 2 about August, September. We've had careful management of this project because of all of the issues that are going on at the wastewater treatment plant. We've had to work in with the operational side of the business, so we'll be looking for a deferred expenditure on this by a couple of months, but it's just working with the plant to make sure that we don't disrupt the plant too much. I've taken the opportunity in this report to put 2 updates in there which are not particularly part of the project, but it just seemed appropriate for a bit of an update on the treatment plant, and principally paragraphs 8, 9 and 10 of executive summary. So just to say that, councillors recall in December, January, we had the biological breakdown of the plant. We've put a lot of effort into the plant recovery. and pleased to say at this point in time things are looking really positive for the plant. It was in pretty good shape when we had the storm event the other day, and that was very helpful that the recovery of the plant was at a point that it helped with the storm event. So that's going well. We're just in the final throes of having a report to try and understand technically what had gone wrong. The report will be inconclusive. It'll be a number of contributing factors, but it's a very complicated technical report that we're just trying to get our minds across at the moment and deal with regional council on that. And the last point was the update on the storm event on 17th of June. I think as we've conveyed to councillors before, the damage to the plant was a lot less than anticipated at the time. We've had some damage to our screens, something in under $20,000. We're looking at insurance claim, so we were lucky in terms of that event and the minimal damage. So we're happy to answer any questions on the project and the treatment plant.
Thanks, Chris. Questions?
One question, Mr. The damage which occurred to the screen, was there some object or something which came through and demolished it?
Yep, so once again, we have a reporting requirement on that, and we're looking at that, but councillors recall that there was a lot of material that came down the pipe system, a lot of fats and greases that came down and clogged up the screens and damaged the screens. So why that occurred, it's obviously related to high volumes of water, like the highest recorded flows ever in the history of the plant coming down there. So it's dislodged things in the pipe network and brought them through. So once again, it's a report we're looking at. Obviously, every time something like this happens, it's trying to understand what happened, why it happened, how can we mitigate sort of that happening again.
And sludge, that is strong enough to smash the screen.
In this case, yes. Yep.
There's a hell of a lot of it.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of stuff that comes down in the wastewater system. You'd be surprised that our mattresses coming down the wastewater system before and all sorts of things. In this case, it was just material and a build-up of material that came down in concentrated form. I think some of the councillors might have seen the photos that sort of indicated what the screening room was like at the height of the storm. But please don't forget, this was a very significant event in the highest recorded history of inflows into the plant. So, what we had, and we've done a bit of analysis on the rainfall event, and we had 3 days of quite a significant event. So all of the grounds were saturated, the pipes were full, and then right on the end of that we got a really significant event that came on top of a saturated system. So that's why it was so bad.
Right. Any further questions? All right, I'll take the report, that the report be received. I have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Scott, the next one is item number 13, the procurement report. Scott, the report on that. Take the report as read. This is a quarterly update.
It is. It is a quarterly update. I'm happy to take the report as read and answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions of Scott? There being none, I move that the report be received. Have a seconder for that, please. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Item number 14, which is the gifting of land in Shakespeare Avenue. Also take this report as read and welcome Nicholas and Dee to report to us on anything that you wish to before we ask you some questions, if there are any.
Afternoon, councillors. We'll take the report as read and happy to take any questions.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes, thanks again. I applaud the idea of this, but I get the one concern I have is what might happen, let's say, at Trinity Road, over, also the Tauranga, sorry, as an incorporated society. What would happen with the land? Would it go to, would it become commercial, etc.? So what protection is in place for it to remain social housing? Would something, I haven't considered that, would something be put on the title that would ensure that no matter who owned it?
That's exactly what we have considered, and in fact,
So item 10 covers that to some extent. Item 10, which is part of the recommendation, condition that the social housing development as presented proceeds and is completed.
No, sorry, that's not what I'm talking about. Just that condition there is not on the title, it's not as strong.
It's item number 62, so the property will be transferred to the Runanga, subject to a memorandum of encumbrance in favour of council, requiring that the trust offers the land back to council for a sum of $1 in the event that the trust wishes to dispose of the land. But that will actually also ensure that the land is used for the purpose in which it's given.
Does that go on the title?
It does.
No, okay, sorry, that was what I was.
Yeah, so we need that protection to make sure that, having handed it over doesn't mean that we sold off commercial benefit.
Okay, that's one thing.
Thank you. Further questions?
I'll move. Yeah, I guess I just challenge this a wee bit. What's the rationale for giving it away? I've read the report, so I know all that. We're not in the habit of giving land away.
So, Chair, could I answer that? A previous council had this land available, and we went out through an advertising process, got no interest. It was offered to a social provider, Habitat, who turned it down, even at no cost, because they
This particular
particular land, because their view was at the time they didn't feel that area was safe, and so that will give you some idea, and it's contained in the report that this is a deprived area, low socioeconomic.
No, I know the area pretty well.
The opportunity for the Runanga is to create a major change in that community. And I think that councillors have seen the designs, the concepts, and I have great personal hope that this will actually bring much needed change in that community. So to Councillor Mallett, I think we had tried the market, the open market process. The market rejected it, and I think that this is now a very good solution because it is part of the overall land, even though we own that land.
Thanks, Gordon. But when you said Habitat turned it down, presumably they didn't have access to the rest of the land, so they were offered it just as a.
I mean, yes, that is correct. But the principle was at that point they wouldn't have a bar of it. Yeah, I think what has happened there with the changes, the houses coming off and so on, has created an opportunity that at the time probably wasn't envisaged by Habitat.
If I may, through the chair, the other land around it was actually owned by Housing New Zealand, so those properties were taken down back in 2006 through to 2010.
Sorry, those properties were what?
Were owned by Housing New Zealand previously. So.
And what did you say after that?
So they were actually demolished as part of a previous community renewal project on the corner, which Hamilton City Council was taking the lead with at that stage with Housing New Zealand and a range of other organisations around actually doing a large social housing project, which changed government then that it stopped. But through Waikato Whānui Sōwhatu land settlement agreements, Housing New Zealand would have to offer that land back to them first. And so looking at this project in its entirety, Housing New Zealand, Waikato Whānui and Te Rūnanga o Kirikiriroa have actually partnered together around working through that process to actually move it from Housing New Zealand to the tribe and then back out to a social housing provider that enables this development to happen. So in retrospect, I think it speaks quite nicely. This would be a nice contribution from the city to support a fairly large social housing project here in Hamilton. It would actually speak to some of the housing reforms that are actually happening at the moment, and also speak to our relationships with Waikato.
Chair, in addition to that, I attended the sod turning last week where Te Koha Health are creating a health clinic on another site. So it's actually creating other aspects to the urban development, and then we will have a debate in the future about the Enderley Community Centre, about how that might be managed either by us or there are several parties that are interested in doing that. So I think the total area has got a marvellous opportunity to go through this renewal process to lift that community up some levels.
Further questions?
Just also, I think in the district plan, this is zone residential, I presume, and these blocks of land aren't big enough to build a house on anyway in the district plan. So really, by combining it with the neighbours, it makes sense.
That's correct. Okay, well, there's a fair bit to this recommendation from management at paragraphs 8 through to 12 inclusive. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Young. No further discussion. Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Item number 15, Cumberland Drive. Welcome Ken, welcome Sally. I'll also take the report as read and ask if you've got any further comments or part of your presentation that you wish to make to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no more to add to what's in the report.
I'm just going to make it clear, Chair, this is another one of the scenarios whereby resource consent requires us to purchase the land. So this is a scenario whereby I've come previously to the committee. We have really no other legal avenue but to purchase it. As an update, we do have a staff member going through a number of files, reviewing the various consent files to identify other parts of the land where we have similar purchase obligations. We've currently gone through about 6,500 resource consents and still have yet to finish. So we're doing a large piece of work to ensure that we can bring back the full report rather than just piecemeal to council going forward with all of those obligations placed on council, and council will consider them in an entirety. But until that stage, we've got to continue to bring it through a one-by-one basis.
Do you have a timeline for when this work might be completed?
It's looking like the end of July. We should have that completed, and then that process then starts taking that any obligations we have and then running a valuation against them to determine the price. Because the resource consent only establishes the obligation to buy the land, it doesn't set the price. So there's a subsequent process. So I'd suggest maybe by September we'd be in a position to have all that information available.
Would we then need to buy at that particular time, or is it
absolutely not?
Something triggers the actual purchase, does it?
Like this does here when we're seeking to meet the obligations of a resource consent. All that will do, the process we're going through, will identify firstly the list, get approval so the delegated authorities are in place, and also identify for a long-term plan process what any funding obligations are required. But it will not trigger the requirement to purchase any land.
Councillor McPherson?
The only thing that caught my attention to this is the fact that the developers agreed to our valuation. Experience is usually, at least initially, a gap, and then there's negotiation, and it's almost always in between the two. We can't tell them what the valuation is, I know, but was there anything special that caused them to like it so much they said, yeah, I'll take that?
I think CDL are doing a lot of work up in the Rototuna area, and we're keen to have this particular purchase resolved. We agreed that we would get a joint valuation, so we appointed, which is unusual and is not the normal thing we would do, but in this particular instance we would have one valuer work for both parties, and that we would be bound by that figure, and that's the figure that's been produced by Telfia.
Isn't it better if we have our own for protection of our own catch, and then they get the is, and they can agree or disagree with it, but we at least know the base rate is something that is ours, not part of someone else's.
In this particular case, I did all the commissioning of the valuer. Telford Young are a firm that I would have used anyway, and are doing the majority of our work, so I feel very comfortable that the figure they've come up with is a figure that's beneficial, but is the right figure for the day for this land.
I'll move.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Seconder. Those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thanks. Thanks, Sally. Thanks again. Item number 16, which is the McEldow and Partners contract variation. Welcome, Jacob. Welcome, Aaron. I'll take this report as read and allow you, if you wish to make any comment. I'll take the report as read. Thank you. Any questions?
I'll move.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Gallagher. Thank you. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item number 17, which is the contract of supply of LPG to the cemetery.
I'll move.
Second.
Thank you. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Didn't even have a chance to sit down. Item number 18, which is the contract 13400.
I'm happy to move this one also.
Okay, we'll let him sit down this time. Have a seconder, please.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Tooman. Those in favour, please say aye. Against? Oh, sorry, question.
I just noticed that all of these tenders were out of town ones, and that we've been using those anyway. So is it are there none like that do this sort of work?
Mr. Chair, no, there's no current ones that can do the full service from printing through to the mail outside of it. That's what we really want. There's no local ones that can do the
So the tender brief specified the whole package, not the parts of it. Thanks.
All right, those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. And now we come to the resolution to exclude the public. Section 48 of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987. Do I have somebody who will
I'll
move?
move.
Thank you. Seconder. Thank you.